All right, guys. So welcome to the podcast. I have got Rand Fishkin here with me. This guy he has an incredible background, which I'm excited to jump into here in a second. He is currently the founder and CEO of SparkToro, which we're excited to learn more about. But Rand, thanks for being on, man. Thanks so much for
Yeah, my pleasure, Scott. Good to be here.
Yes. And, so Rand is an author. He has had incredible, experience in the marketing, advertising space, influencers, a lot of the stuff that I have a tremendous love for. So I have a slew of questions, man, that I'm about to grill you with to learn more about you. But tell me, I know you were born in, is it New Jersey, which I just got back from. I was out in New York, New Jersey this weekend. It was a beautiful weekend outside of sun. Yesterday it was freezing. But the weather was good to us. I got a good run around Central Park in Manhattan, and drove up past New Jersey, and so that's where you're from originally. Did you grow up down there, or where are you from originally?
Weirdly enough, I spent all of my life in Seattle, with the exception of the first 3 months where my parents had an apartment in New York City, but my grandparents lived out in New Jersey. So I was born in New Jersey, lived in New York for a very tiny part of my life, and then moved to Seattle.
Very cool. So you've been in Seattle for, I think we are exactly the same age, man.
Yeah. 42 and a half years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So anyway, that is awesome. So tell me about your background. I know quite a bit. I want to hear your side and how you got intrigued by, online advertising, promotion, advertising. Break it down for me. Where did it all start for you?
Sure. Yeah. So I dropped out of college in 2001. So that I could build websites with my mom. Actually, my mom was running a small business marketing consultancy, doing like old school types of advertising and promotion stuff, business cards, letterhead, logo, all that kind of thing. And I was very excited about the internet, so I wanted to build websites, and we struggled dramatically. Had debt collectors coming after us, and near bankruptcies, and all that kind of terrible stuff. But eventually discovered SEO, search engine optimization, which is where I built my first company, originally called SEO Moz, and then later Moz. And that started as a consulting business, but became a software business, got venture backing, which I generally regret. Raised lots of money, became a very big company, 200 plus people, $50 million in revenue a year. I stepped down from the CEO role there in 2014 and left the company at the start of 2018 and started SparkToro actually the next day. So SparkToro is very different, not venture backed, not in SEO. I had a non-compete with my old company, but helps folks do audience research. So understanding any group of people's online behavior and demographics, so that folks can do better advertising, targeting, content marketing to them, social media marketing to them, find sources of influence that impact them. For example, Scott, your podcast comes up when you search for particular types of audiences, showing as a source of influence to people in, for example, the entrepreneurial and marketing universes, influencer marketing universes, which is kind of cool. So that's my story in brief. I also wrote a book called Lost and Founder, which I think you can probably see on the shelf behind me there. Sure. And I do a variety of other things. Oddly enough, my wife and I are making a video game with a game studio in Los Angeles. And
no way.
Yeah. And we're investors in a variety of sort of alternative financing funds. I'm pretty passionate these days about helping people find other ways to finance their businesses and consider alternatives to the venture universe.
Very cool. Very cool, man. So tell me about, your mother, I saw that you guys were doing, you went from doing like 800 a year to 26 million, and it got to 50 million. Your mom, where did your mom's love for marketing come from? And how long was she in that before you decided to team up with her?
Yeah. So she started the business that eventually sort of turned into SEO Moz in 1981. When I was 2 years old, right? So in a way, my brother and sister and I talk about all kind of growing up under her desk. because, you know, after school, instead of going home, we'd go to our mom's office. My dad worked at Boeing. He had sort of a very
Oh,
inflexible job, um, compared to my mom, who, hey, you know, as long as there's no clients present or whatever, it's fine if the kids are here. And
very cool.
I think we all got a sense of some entrepreneurship interest from that. My brother now is a founder of an agency here in Seattle, marketing agency. My sister actually works for the city of Seattle, but
Very
yeah.
cool. Very cool. And you got the name or title, the Wizard of Moz. I've seen that all over the place. I don't know. Someone probably just gave you that name. Is there any special story behind where you got that?
No, I think that was a pun that Geraldine, my wife, made. I think probably when she was my girlfriend at the time, in the early 2000s. We've been together for since God was a boy, she likes to say. And I believe that the naming convention was essentially that there's someone, you know, behind the scenes, operating all of this stuff, and supposedly that was me at Moz, but I don't think I was very behind the scenes. So maybe the not quite an aptonym.
Gotcha. Yes. So, couple questions for you now. Let's move into advertising, marketing, SEO. There have been tremendous changes in the approach to online marketing, especially in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, with my company Gigg, we're taking a very interesting or unique approach to building brands through interesting calls to action, social media campaigns, and so on, and very much influencer driven.
Hmm.
Tell me what changes you've seen for the good over the past 10 years, and where any entrepreneur or business owner should be focused moving into, you know, the next 1 to 5 years when it comes to online efforts and marketing.
Yeah. Well, to your point, Scott, I think that what you folks are doing is probably very wise, because my sense is that there is a tremendous amount of concentrated power and authority in a few big platforms. This is essentially, you know, Google, Facebook, Amazon.
Right.
Now Apple is getting into this game a little bit as well, and there's a few other players who are relatively sizable. ByteDance is one, and they control a huge percentage of all online advertising spend. And my belief is, especially over the last 10 years, it is extremely difficult to get a competitive advantage by simply throwing dollars at those big platforms. You're going to play where everybody else is playing. Is there some opportunity? Yes, in some sectors, maybe if you have a better product, if you have, you know, better calls to action, maybe you have a better conversion rate to your competitors, or you have better lifetime value. Yeah, you can play in those spaces. But the competitive advantage comes from working with folks like yourself, where you are doing social media marketing campaigns that are often, you know, sort of guerrilla, or very creative, as opposed to, hey, let's just spend $5 million with Google and we know we're going to make $5.1 million from that spend. You can throw $500,000 at a creative PR campaign, a creative podcast marketing campaign, a creative content creation campaign, a creative social media marketing campaign, and see returns that are 10x, 100x. That's where I think the exciting shifts are coming from over the last decade. And I will say too, I think going forward, you know, those big platforms, especially with the death of third-party cookies, with the rising privacy policy changes that are happening in Canada and California, and most especially and strongly in the EU, which affects, you know, how everyone plays in these markets. The changes that are coming to browsers, the changes to Google Analytics. We are going to see a much less attributable world of marketing going forward. And there's negative things about that. Like, that sucks for a bunch of people who spend tons of dollars, you know, throwing money at these things and expect to see every dollar perfectly attributed. But for creative folks who can think beyond the, hey, I spent this dollar, where did it go exactly? Did I get $1.10 in return? That, if you can think beyond that, I think you're going to have a lot of success in marketing.
I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. One of the challenges that I found, and I'm sure that this is similar for you, you know, we'll be dealing with, you know, multi-billion-dollar corporations that have been around for a very long time. And there's a word that you mentioned. If you are creatively, you know, focused and you're thinking ahead of the game, you're going to have much better chance of success, you know, as we move into the new age of advertising and so on. Why are so many companies so closed-minded to taking new approaches to marketing? It drives me nuts. Rand, it drives me nuts. You know, and it's hard for me not to call some of these pros that are sitting in these meetings that run marketing, you know, budgets of $50 to $100 million, and they still are so closed-minded. What would you say to folks like this? If you had the chance, if you're sitting across from a guy or gal that just will not open their mind, what do you say to someone like that?
So first off, I actually have a lot of empathy for those folks, because I think that many of them are, it is not that they can't think beyond the attribution game that they've been playing for the last 10 or 15 years. It's that two forces, I think, have conspired to make so many people who run big marketing and advertising departments into exactly what you're describing, Scott. And that force number one is inertia. So over the last 25 years, what we've gone from is a world where, you know, in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, it was all about creative, right? It was all about, hey, can we do, you know, a better television ad or a better outdoor campaign or a viral guerrilla marketing campaign? Like, we have to get very creative with our advertising, in-person events, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be measurable to some degree. We can see like the same store sales in the region that we did it go up compared to places where we didn't do it, but it is not attributable. We can't say, we could never say in the 1980s, like, hey, we ran this, you know, guerrilla marketing campaign at a mall in Cleveland, and we saw Cleveland's, you know, same store sales go up compared to Cincinnati. But you would never say this one sale came from that one event.
Yeah.
And the internet broke that.
Changed
it
everything.
Trained, right? It trained all of us, myself included. Like all the years I was doing SEO, it was about, we ranked for this keyword in Google. It sent this many visitors. This percent of them converted. That percent of them turned into this amount of lifetime value for the company and came back. We were used to cookie windows that lasted infinitely. You could measure all this stuff. You knew exactly the buyer journey. And so marketers were trained for the last 20 years to expect perfect attribution. And it is hard to change, man. It's hard to get out of that mindset. The second thing, the second big force that affects them is the political structures and environments that they're in inside these companies. So I'm sure you deal with this all the time when you're in pitch meetings, right? But hey, CMO, let's take some of these dollars that we're throwing at, you know, big tech and get more creative with them. Put that spend into some more unique kinds of, you know, an influencer marketing campaign, a content marketing campaign, a social media campaign, some offline campaigns. Let's try some events. All those kinds of things are, hey, that might work. They're not arguing necessarily that it might work, but how do I prove to my boss that when we took that spend away from Google or Facebook or whatever, LinkedIn or Twitter or Meta, TikTok, right? We took that spend away and then we put it toward this creative, hard to measure thing. How do I prove to my boss that that was the thing that worked? I'm not saying it won't work, but you have to give me the ammunition to be able to go to my CEO, my board, my CFO, and prove it.
Yeah, yeah.
And man, if you are used to proof, if you've had 20 years of, we spent this much, here's the tracking, you can see it in the analytics, you can log into Adobe or log into your GA and see that data in there versus, hey, look, we did this great thing. It was huge for the brand. We're pretty sure that's what affected our conversion rate positively in the next 2 quarters. Hard to get buy-in for that.
So true. So you mentioned a couple things that I want to touch on. First of all, you've played a big role in the SEO space. What are your thoughts on SEO now, and where will SEO be in the future? I mean, I've seen numerous articles talking about how SEO is a thing of the past. It's old school. It's archaic. You know, and yet so many people rely so heavily on SEO. Where is SEO now, and where is it going?
Well, I think what's interesting, I've been out of the field for 5 years as a practitioner, but you know, obviously I still have lots of connections in that space and watch it out of interest. And my sense, Scott, is that SEO has become a relatively mature practice. So I was just at a conference in San Diego speaking there called Search Love, which is in the search marketing space, not necessarily just organic, but paid as well. And I was listening to the other speakers and talking to folks in the crowd, and my sense was, gosh, it hasn't changed all that much in 5 years. And that never was the case. Like the 17 years that I was in the industry, it was changing so rapidly and so massively, even quarter by quarter, that it was hard to keep up. I would say this, I think that SEO is going to continue to have a long, bright future, but I don't think it's going to have a massive amount of growth, right? As compared to a lot of things that are happening in creator spaces, which, influencer creator spaces, I think those words are, the overlap is becoming quite strong. And my sense is that in SEO, the days of rapid expansion and growth are over. I think we're at a steady state now. Would I tell most businesses to invest in SEO still? Absolutely, right? Like you still have billions and billions of people performing tens of billions of searches every day. When people are looking to buy things or learn about things or investigate brands, they search like they do. It's how we've all grown up. It's how we've been trained. I would be shocked if in 10 years people were performing fewer searches than they are. What I do think is it's not where a tremendous amount of the new things are going to be happening. It's a basic, right? It's like brand building or naming or pricing or
Necessary.
packaging. It's necessary. It's a building block.
Yeah.
But is it going to be, where the new and exciting stuff is? Probably not for a while.
So where is the new and exciting stuff to you? What is the new and exciting stuff we're going to be looking for as business owners? Where are we going to start finding ourselves as we're looking into, the future of advertising? What are those new things? Maybe pick out 2 or 3 if you had to say, where is this going?
So let's see. I almost want to start with an unpopular. I don't think it's going to be as big as everyone thinks it's going to be.
Oh, let's hear it. I want this. Yes, absolutely.
So look, I, like everyone, have played a lot with OpenAI and some of the other large language model artificial intelligences, which seem to be just predictive text machine learning, but whatever you want to call them, ChatGPT, and that whole universe of stuff. I do believe that there are tasks that are currently a pain in the butt for people to do, things that analysts do, things that developers do, where these large language model AIs will be very helpful, right? They'll be really useful. Hey, ChatGPT, can you go into this code that I wrote and look for all the places where I did this kind of a thing and replace it with this other kind of a thing, and it's way better than the find and replace that you can do now? Yeah, absolutely. Hey, can you go, ChatGPT, I want you to go crawl all the web pages of my competitor. ChatGPT can't crawl, but let's imagine that you get one of the libraries that can. I want you to go crawl all the web pages of my competitor and tell me if and when they start talking about this new product on a regular basis. Today, you kind of have to set up a bunch of monitoring services for that. In the future, you might not need to, and you might not need to be a developer to do that. So yes, I think there's interesting applications. I think there's things that, that technology can replace. Do I think it presents a ton of net new opportunity the way something like the creator market does? No, I don't think so. I think it's kind of like we're in 1982 and Microsoft Excel was released.
It's an exciting fad. It's an exciting fad. I'm right there with you. I actually...
I was just going to say on the very exciting front, I see this shift, Scott, away from what we've classically called influencers, which I don't mean to denigrate them, but it has this like association in many people's minds with attractive dude with 6-pack abs who, takes off his shirt at beaches around the world and poses with a product and you pay him.
And like you and I,
Yeah, you can tell. Oh my God, fit as a fiddle over here. But the Jewish people are not known for their like 6-pack abs, my friend. We're a little different. But I do think that there is massive opportunity in what's becoming known as sort of creator world and sources of influence. I think what's happening in every space that is imaginable is that there are numerous people, dozens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people who are building up YouTube channels and Twitch channels and podcasts and email newsletters and content series and every type of media you can imagine, social and otherwise. And these are influencing a larger and larger chunk of the people who are researching what they want to do, what they want to buy, how they want to learn in those spaces. And I think it is being largely ignored by most people who throw millions and hundreds of millions at advertising. That's where I think the most exciting opportunities are coming and will exist for the next at least 5 years.
Well, I am so happy you said that, because truthfully, Rand, that is the space that we are diving into, and it's incredibly exciting. So, any other thing?
I kind of think, it's hard to argue. Like I don't know of someone who could say, no, that's not happening. And I don't know of anyone who could say, oh, no, there's no opportunity.
You know, I think that no one's going to say that. I think the concern as we go in and we start talking about these opportunities, it's going to be the minds of some of the folks that we talked about before that will not open or be open to testing or trying this stuff. That's going to be the downfall. A lot of these bigger organizations that just don't have forward thinkers that are, you know, willing to test and try some of this stuff, and they will fall behind. But I'm absolutely with you on everything that you mentioned. Anything else that you would mention outside of those two things that we just spoke of?
Ooh, let's see. My suspicion is, I believe that in-person events and experiences are having a comeback.
Absolutely.
Right? So, yeah. So I think that it's quite odd. There's going to be a lot of professional events series where COVID kind of destroyed them to such an extent that they're going to have a hard time coming back. But I have some friends who, for example, are actors, and they are seeing like theater attendance skyrocketing again. There's a great show in Seattle that's sold out. Like, I'm trying to convince my friends to go. We had a great time, and I'm like, oh, you got to go see Between Two Knees, and you can't get tickets. Like, it's completely sold out. That hasn't happened since 2019. So that's exciting to see again. I think there's a change in what kinds of events are happening, but if you can figure out event marketing and event creation, I think that's going to have a bright future again. I think a lot of people, especially folks who are younger than you and I, are tired of sitting at home and they would like to go places and do things.
I think that's just human nature, man. We want connection. We want to get out there. We want to meet people. We want to rub shoulders with like-minded individuals. I love everything that you're saying, man. And we, this is the first time you and I have ever, spoken in person, but you are speaking my language. I actually just spoke recently at a conference, and I talked about, I started Gigg for the music industry, and the music industry has evolved and changed so much, especially, since we were kids, you and I. An artist to get discovered would travel, across the country or across seas to get in a place to be seen, right? The Troubadour in LA was a place that a lot of big name artists would go to hopefully get up on stage to be seen, by an A&R rep or a record label to get signed. And what I was talking about in the conference is you got to get yourself out there. In many cases, these businesses or potential clients or customers, they want to see you. And it's like you're getting up on stage when you go to these events to get to know folks, let them get to know you, your product, your brand. FaceTime is always the most powerful way to build your brand, right? That's why one of the reasons I wanted you here. It's too bad we didn't, fly you in to do this, but this is still great. But there's just something different, when you're meeting people face to face and you engage, on a face-to-face level. And there's power in that. So I agree with you. Get out to these events, man. Get back to it, right? I
mean, my personal network, the investors who put money into Spark Toro, even actually the investors who put money into Moz, those opportunities would not have existed without the network that I built up through in-person connections. And that's not to say that the, very popular YouTube videos that we did at Moz and those series weren't successful as well. In fact, I think in a lot of cases, we used the digital media success that we had, content marketing, social media marketing, video creation, to propel us onto stages and events where we then built these one-to-one connections with other folks who had influential followings and connections of their own, or access to capital, that then turned into sort of the engine behind our growth. And I'm worried, I'm scared for folks who don't have that opportunity or can't execute on that. I think it's really hard to build a network of people who are willing to have your back and get you your next job and show you your next opportunity and fund your next project or introduce you to someone who will. If you don't have some in-person connection, that's gonna be a real rough one.
Well said. Definitely well said. So what is next? I have a few more questions and we'll get on with the crazy times for both of us. We're staying super busy. What's next for SparkToro? What's on the docket, or what things are you guys focused on as you're moving into the remainder of 2023 and then the future from there?
Yeah, so Scott, you may have heard that this very eccentric billionaire bought Twitter. And
Musk.
Yes. He has not been operating it like a sane person might, and we are pretty frustrated by that. So Twitter for a long time has been SparkToro's connector network, meaning that we use Twitter to build the connections between this person on LinkedIn and this website and this podcast and this blog and this YouTube series. Like, they're all connected to this account. And Twitter is great for that because almost everyone who uses Twitter in their creator mind links to all this stuff, right? And you can see the following graph, all this kind of stuff. So one of the biggest things that SparkToro has to do over the next few months is get off of Twitter as the primary connector network. We'll still keep using the data from there, but we have 13 other networks and websites that we cover, and we're going to be shifting to data from those other places. So that's a big one. Okay. We're also, I think we're trying to think a little bit more about how do we help the agencies and consultants build the use case for exactly what you're talking about, right? Like shifting your dollars and ad spend from ad spend on big tech programmatic platforms to more creative kinds of marketing. How do we help them build that case, not just through the product and the data, but also through education and through training, through examples of people who've done it successfully, right? We're trying to get folks onto our office hours webinar and at our event in November to show people how to make that happen. I think that not everyone's going to do it. Like, no way. Right? I realize that we're going to be preaching to, I don't know, the top 20% of the most creative marketers, and only 5% of them, 10% of them are going to be able to make the case to their bosses and teams and clients to get buy-in for this. But I want to increase that. We can increase it 2% this year and 2% next year and 2% the year after that. Maybe we can start to have some impact. The weird part, I'll tell you what's so strange to me, Scott, is like this history repeating itself phenomenon. When I was young and people would talk about history repeating itself and it was old people, I was like, what do they mean? I don't get it. And now that we're getting older, I'm like, oh, I see what they mean. Because this feels to me so much like trying to convince anyone to do SEO in 2006. When there was just if you talk to a business owner in 2006, a board of directors, a CMO, they were all like, SEO? Isn't that spam? That's manipulation. Are you even allowed to do that? Because Google let you do that. And now, of course, everyone has a huge SEO team. Every business has got dozens or hundreds of people working on it, consultants and agencies. And I think the same thing is here when we talk about marketing through sources of influence. That it will become a standard. It's just going to be a long slog of folks like you and I trying to educate the market, teach people how this works, and get them on the boat.
Couldn't agree more. And some of our conversation, we definitely need to chat after this because you've been going on ideas and some thoughts, and I think we might be able to really help each other. So I'm actually excited about some of this stuff. So a couple more questions for you. If you were to pick three brands that you feel are doing it right in every sense of the word with regard to branding, messaging, just building who they are properly, who would you shout out today? Three brands that you just think are doing it right in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
They could be huge global companies, or they could be up and comers. But if right now, if someone were to ask you, give me three brands, Rand, who are they?
All right. The first one I'll give you is there's a video game company called Supergiant. They're out of the Bay Area. Supergiant Games makes most popularly and recently a game called Hades, and they're making a sequel to it called Hades 2. That game, I think a ton of it is product, right? Like they have created a fantastic product, but they have also, over the last, I believe they've been operating about 12 years now, 11 or 12 years, and they have built a series of games that have built up fandom around not just a singular, sort of set of IP, right? They're not Marvel. They're not just producing like comics that are all in the same universe or video games that are all in the same universe. All of their games are very different. They're an independent game company, but each of them have this thematic similarity that builds on itself. And I think that when you are thinking about, as an entrepreneur and a product creator, hey, how does this product that I'm building build on my past success? And how does it create an opportunity for my future success? How do I build fans off of each thing that I produce and get a flywheel going, as opposed to just, one time I throw a dart at this dartboard and then I throw a dart at the other dartboard. Right. That company really impresses me, and their marketing is excellent as well. I think they've awesome. Chosen some good publishers, made good decisions there.
Yeah, that's one.
So that's one that I love. Gosh, I think.
I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, I do like being put on the spot about this kind of stuff, because I think it can bring up interesting opportunities. Okay, another one. This is extremely odd, but I don't know if you saw, Mastodon is about to cross 10 million accounts.
Yep.
And they continue to have these sort of growth spikes. You know what I love about Mastodon is the patience. The patience to say, hey, we think, the guy who started, the German guy, Eugene Rothko, who I think got married last weekend. So mazel tov to him. But he basically created this thing in 2017 or 18 before you really needed it, right? Like, we did not, I don't think a Twitter clone competitor that was open source and based on the Fediverse, that was never really needed until, Elon bought Twitter and started making all these changes that pissed off a huge number of their advertisers, pissed off a huge number of their investors, pissed off a huge number of their users. And those people started looking for alternative places to go. And Mastodon has clearly become one for millions and millions of people, myself included. I use Twitter still, obviously professionally, but I use Mastodon a lot. And it's very cool. I think the way that they have done marketing is very impressive too. They've stuck to their values. They have not tried to be more than they are. They've had the good sense, I think, to stay humble and stay committed to their mission of enabling anyone who wants to build on WordPress, right? Automatic is building on top of Mastodon, and Meta is building an instance on top of the Fediverse. Like, to have Zuckerberg go, hey, what you've got over there is pretty awesome. We're going to invest in that. Damn. I mean, that's pretty mind blowing. I also think they're ahead of the game in terms of thinking of the internet as a protocol for anyone to be able to use. Sort of like email became a protocol, our websites became a protocol. I think that protocol style of marketing, that to me is the real promise of what was sort of pitched as Web3, right? Like, I almost feel like the Fediverse might be the best thing to come out of the whole concept of Web3. And, it's not using blockchain, but it has similar goals behind it.
Very
All right,
cool.
the third one, let me go classic and old school. I have been, I don't use their products. I don't find them particularly enjoyable, but I'm constantly amazed and impressed by Red Bull. I think Red Bull is so willing to take a bunch of moonshots, not be able to prove the attribution on any of them, do a ton of big brand focused marketing, a lot of event stuff, a lot of sponsorship stuff. I was at a conference where I spoke at the Red Bull racing facility up in Milton Keynes in the UK. I was like, gosh, they are just throwing creative ideas all over the place, knowing that a bunch of them won't land, but the few that do will have a huge impact. And that is the kind of marketing mentality that I think will keep a big brand relevant in an age where a bunch of their competitors are, looking at their advertising accounts and going, did we make a return on this, event marketing spend? How do we prove it to our boss? Red Bull doesn't have to prove shit to anybody. That's pretty exciting.
I love everything you just talked about. So the first one you talked about was the gaming company, which they have a plan. So a plan, they know where they're going, their direction. They see it and they're going after it. The second one was patience with Mastodon. You got to be patient, man. It's one of the toughest things to have when it comes to being a business owner or an entrepreneur. It is so tough. And you're talking to the guy that struggles with that characteristic. But I understand the importance of it. And then third, with Red Bull is one of my favorite stories, risk taking, willing to go after everything, test, try. Yes. Those guys are forward thinkers. If I were to say, yes. And I've worked with Red Bull, it's been about 5 years, but when I sit in a meeting with Red Bull, you got a bunch of people in that room that are willing to test, to try, to go and do things outside of the normal wheelhouse, right? Yes. So I love every one of those examples. Those were all brilliant examples, and appreciate that. So as we wind down, I have what I like to call whack questions to throw at you, meaning they're just quick, out of this world, random questions just to get to know you on a more personal level, getting away from the more professional side, just to get to know you, which I always love doing. And so you can give me one-word answers, or you can take it deeper and add some context to some of these things. But I'm gonna start throwing these out at you, man. What is your favorite genre of music?
Oh man.
Tough one.
I mean, I grew up in the 90s in Seattle, so it's very hard for me to say anything but grunge. But I do appreciate a wide variety of music. I will absolutely listen to clever, hip hop and rap. I will listen to some, progressive pop stuff and alt stuff. I've been into some electronica, so wide variety, but I'm a 90s kid from Seattle.
Yeah, some of my favorite bands ever out of Seattle in the 90s. Pearl Jam, I'm a fan. Nirvana. I don't know if you've heard of MXPX.
Absolutely.
Okay. Move to Bremerton.
Move to Bremerton, baby.
I think they're from Bremerton. I could be wrong. But man, some of the best bands ever are out of your neck of the woods. So that is awesome. Okay. Next one. What is your favorite comic book hero?
Ooh, gosh, what a good question. Okay. Actually, I am not sure about the comic book version of this character. In fact, I haven't read a ton of them, but I suspect that she's deeply problematic in the comics. Harley Quinn. But if you haven't seen the new HBO Max series, the Harley Quinn series on HBO Max, it is literally one of my favorite shows from the last 5 years, and that includes everything from Better Call Saul to Mandalorian, or anything you could name. I think Harley Quinn is one of the tightest, best written, most subversive, clever, creative, feminist, interesting, unique shows that is out there, and I love everything about it. So she's my new favorite. My
sister's obsessed with her. I love her story. I have from the very get-go. They've done I gotta admit, I'm a Margot Robbie
Have
fan.
you seen the show?
I've seen parts of it. It's good stuff. It's definitely good
So
stuff.
good.
Yeah,
So
so
good.
good. Okay, so I heard you drop The Mandalorian. Who is your favorite Star Wars character? Sounds like you're a Star Wars nerd, potentially.
Oh,
Favorite Star Wars character?
oh, I don't know if I'm a Star Wars nerd. I haven't seen any of the stuff outside of the like primary live action universe. So none of the cartoons or all that kind of stuff. I've heard those are good. But I think the hero of the series to me was always Leia, and I think that her story is the best one in there. And obviously Carrie Fisher is just a treasure of a human being. You know, I know she was deeply troubled and had lots of life challenges, but just clever and creative and fun, and holy shit. I mean, that quote about her banging Harrison Ford in his prime, that's incredible. She is, what a hero. She's awesome.
Yeah, she was pretty amazing, and she went out in the films really well. They did a great job. So I'm a big Star Wars nerd. Really enjoy that stuff. So when I say coach or mentor, who's the first person that comes to your mind?
Ooh. Gosh, there a whole bunch of people just popped into my head, but I am going to say one of my early mentors and supporters just throughout my career was Dharmesh Shah, who is the co-founder of HubSpot, and he and I started a side project together called inbound.org, which was kind of trying to be like a Hacker News for marketers, and had some success. HubSpot eventually acquired it and subsumed it into other projects that they were doing inside labs. But Dharmesh is an investor in SparkToro, and he has just been a relentlessly kind supporter of mine. So I'm going to put him top of the list.
Wow, what an honor for him. That's so cool. Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. Rand, it has been such a pleasure getting to know you on a more personal level. You inspire me, man. I really enjoyed some of your advice, thoughts. What a cool world to be in right now, especially with all the advancement in technology and so many opportunities for entrepreneurs, man. And advertisers, marketing. And you obviously are a forward thinker, and I think that's one of the reasons you've been so successful in everything you've done. And thanks for inspiring me and many others. And I wish you all of the best in all your endeavors going forward, man. And I really am looking forward to a follow-up conversation offline.
And hopefully an in-person meetup someday. We
absolutely,
man.
In the same city. Absolutely. And I have one final question. This is kind of my outro because I am kind of a cereal nerd. What is your favorite cereal? I would hand it to you if you were sitting next to me, because I guarantee you I have it on hand. Unless it's Akashi or Grape Nuts. Grape Nuts will be served in hell, and I will never, ever buy a box of that again. Anyway, your favorite cereal?
I'm crazy for Lucky Charms. I'm one of those, like when your parents said no to something as a kid for forever, and then you turned 18, you went to college, and you were like, oh man, I need them Lucky Charms. And they were so much better than I. You got them right there. Oh, what am I looking at?
They made me my own box. This is one of my greatest accomplishments. And I don't know if you know this about me, Rand. I'm kind of a cereal nerd. And so, General Mills, Kellogg's, all these companies, they send me all sorts of fun stuff because this is what I've been snacking on behind the scenes. I haven't done it today. Yeah, but I'm a huge cereal nerd. But yeah, this is Lucky Charms ranks number 2 for me all time. So I'm happy to hear it. I wish I could hand you a box right now, but I cannot.
That would be amazing. I need to clearly get in touch with the folks behind that and see if I can get some Lucky Rands.
Hey, I wish you all the best, and if you do that, that will be quite the feat. So get after it. Anyway, Ray, thank you so much, man. Best of luck, and we will be in touch. Thank you.
My pleasure, Scott. Thanks for having me. Take care.